what I want to go over is what I'm doing this winter in terms of maintenance in the landscape. What I want to start off with is pruning. I do a fair amount of pruning in the winter. You have to be careful with what you prune in the winter. Remember your May rule. If it blooms before May, we probably do not want to prune that plant until after it flowers. If it blooms after May, we can probably get away with pruning that during the winter months. A good way to be 100% certain, hop on Google, type in when to prune, the name of the plant that you want to prune, and you should be able to find some good information there in terms of when to prune your plants. But what am I pruning right now in my yard? Ornamental grasses. So they were beautiful in the fall. We had all sorts of plumage. We had pink muley grasses and maiden grass and zebra grass, and they were fantastic. But they're looking weathered, so we've gone ahead and pruned those back. Our perennials, that's kind of been an ongoing thing. We had an early frost here this year, and so we've been slowly pruning back our perennials all the way to the ground. This all around us here is a perennial garden, and so we've been pruning those back to the ground. I'm pruning my hollies, but not to the point that I'm cutting the berries off. I've got some hollies that had gotten kind of leggy on me. So I've got some oak leaf hollies and Nellie R. Stevens hollies, and I've shaped those up just a little bit. I like to have the berries on those this time of year. One, it's festive. You have the green foliage with the red berries, and two, it gives our birds something to feed on when there's not a whole lot of stuff that they can feed on this time of year. So I try to leave those berries on the bushes for as long as I can. What do you not need to prune? Off the top of my head, azaleas, rhododendrons, loropetalums I wouldn't prune. Definitely not forsythias. They bloom real early. They've already set buds for spring. If you prune them now, you're going to cut off your flowers, so stay away from doing those. In terms of dealing with winter annuals, these don't look that great right now. We have had a ton of rain in my area, unprecedented amount of rain. It's about to get super cold. And these pansies are showing signs of botrytis, and that's usually from way too much water. We can't control how much rain we get, but one thing I would encourage you to do is when we have this excessive amount of moisture coming in, is do not put down a bunch of fertilizer on your pansies. You're going to encourage botrytis, and then also your pansies will get long and leggy on you. So what I did a video, I'll try to post a link to it here, of how we installed these beds. And we did an initial round of fertilizer, liquid feed, as soon as we put them in. I haven't done any other fertilizer to them. These will bounce back as soon as this moisture pattern straightens out a little bit. We've had 6 inches of rain in like 10 days. It was really crazy, the amount of rain we had. I expect these to make a full comeback. So those of you that are having issues with your pansies and your snapdragons right now, don't panic. We've had a lot of rain. Just don't water them for the next week or so. Don't put any fertilizer on them, and they should pop back and look fantastic for you. It seems like a lot of winter maintenance is just dealing with leaves. And one thing that I do here, I'm on a trail that I put in through the flower bed here for the kids in the neighborhood. So the kids run from my house to the house behind me here and to the house over here. And they were constantly running back and forth through my flower bed. And so what I did was I lined a trail with monkey grass here and put in some pine bark mix so that they've got a place to come back and forth through the landscape here, and they're not damaging plants, and they can have a great time like kids should have. But raking up these leaves, I'm not going to throw these away. I'm just going to rake them up in a pile, put them in the beds here. So if you've got leaves that are on your patio, your driveway, or a walkway like this, I would encourage you, don't put them by the road. Put them in your flower beds, let them decompose, and your plants will love you for it. Another thing that you need to do is winterize your fountains or any water features that you have this time of year, especially going into a hard freeze like we're about to have. I'm actually in the process of moving this fountain. I'm gonna move it closer down to my patio area. That's why it probably looks a little off-centered right now. I've already pulled the anchors loose where I had it anchored into the ground. And I've already emptied it out with a hand pump here. So this is ready to move. Either pull the plug on your fountains, or a trick that you can do if you want to continue to use your fountains through the winter months is put just a little bit of antifreeze in here, and it'll keep your fountains going throughout the winter. But a word of caution with doing that: if you have birds or other wildlife that frequent your fountain for water, don't put antifreeze in it. It's a bad idea. If you've got it they make fountain screens. If you've got a screen over it where animals can't get in it, you could probably put some antifreeze in it. But if you want to keep it running throughout the winter months, that's a little trick that you can do. Just put a little bit of antifreeze in it, and it'll keep that water from locking up and turning into ice. Another thing that I do in the winter is I put out my mulch. I have a big pile of pine straw off camera here, and I've slowly been going around the yard and putting down mulch, but I do it a little bit differently, and I have really good results, and I want to share that with you. As the leaves come off the trees behind me here in the fall, what I do is I collect them in this bed, and this bed goes all the way around the backyard. So the leaves that are in the grass, I chop them up and I blow them back into the bed here, and the leaves that just fall naturally, I let them lay. And once all the leaves are off the tree, I put a layer of pine straw down on top of it. You can see here last year's pine straw underneath these leaves. So I've done this for 5 or 6 years now. So you get a layer of leaves, a layer of pine straw, a layer of leaves, a layer of pine straw. And I have hostas here. You can see some of the stems from the flowers from the hostas that I need to come in and cut back. They love all this organic material. The azaleas here, they love it too. A pointer that I would give you is when you're putting pine straw and leaves down around your azaleas, don't let it pile up underneath the azalea. I've had some problems with Pythium root rot on these azaleas because I let the leaves get too piled up underneath. If you can get your leaves around the drip line of the plant, the outer perimeter, let decomposition do its thing. Your azaleas will love you for it. They'll be beautiful in the spring. I have very sandy soils here where I'm at. I've got 80 to 90% sand, and these soils, they lack an organic component. And so anything that I can put in it for decomposition is a benefit to the soil, and it probably is for your yard as well. So keep that into consideration. Keep your leaves, let them stack up in your flower beds, come back in the winter, put some pine straw on top of it just to spruce it up. If you're looking to transplant any shrubbery in your yard or trees in your yard, now is the time to do it, especially with this really cold snap that's moving into our area. We're going down in the single digits. Go ahead and start digging up those plants and moving them around. The colder it is, the more dormant those plants will be, and the more likely that they'll survive that transplant and come back for you in the spring. So if you're looking to transplant anything in your yard, now over the next 2 to 4 weeks is the time to transplant those. Late December, early January is when you want to be moving stuff around if you elect to move some plants around in your yard. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor. And until next time, happy gardening.